welcome to Chronically Me. I am Nicole. Before we get into the video at all, please hit the subscribe and follow button down below. That way you are alerted anytime I open up, or anytime I upload a new video. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So, today's video is quite a hard one for me to do, probably one of the hardest that I plan on doing. I feel very vulnerable when I'm discussing this topic with anybody, even family. So I have been MIA from YouTube for about 5 weeks now, maybe a little bit more. And I was in the hospital. So the video today, I want to discuss one of the most stigmatized issues that there are out there, mental health. Whether that's you're suffering from depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, PTSD, schizoaffective disorder, ADD, ADHD, I can go on and on and on. Those are just the most common, that I have found. So the biggest hurdle or obstacle, I would say, with mental health, is just having people understand it. That's the biggest problem. Just somebody understanding it so they can help you. They can be that support system for you. And having a support system when you're dealing with a mental health diagnosis is the absolute number one priority. If you don't have good supports, then you may as well just call it a day when it comes to mental health, because you have to have that somebody to talk to. Getting a therapist is great, but finding that friend or that family member that you can unload on when you need to is of the utmost importance. So, backing up, I was in the hospital for 4 weeks altogether. I originally went to the emergency room because of the problems that I was having. They admitted me. I was on the psychiatric unit for a week. Then they transferred me to what is called RTFA, which stands for Residential Treatment for Adults. It was this big house that I lived in for 2 weeks with about 10 other people. In the facility, I saw their psychiatrist, not my typical psychiatrist. I saw their psychiatrist once a week. I met with my personal therapist twice a week. Her name was Addie, and she was just so amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better therapist, to be honest. And then 4 times a day, we would have group therapy, which helped me. It helped me keep myself distracted from what was going on inside my head. It helped, the day go by faster. When I was at the hospital, because of COVID, we weren't allowed to eat in the cafeteria with the other patients. We had to eat in our room. We had to stay 6 feet apart from all the other patients. So all group therapies were closed or were canceled. So we literally just sat around waiting for meds and meals. That kind of became a joke for some people, just meds and meals and sleep. That's all you did. So once they moved me to the RTFA house, I had more freedoms. And I don't like admitting this, especially with a health channel, but I do smoke. That's my one outlet that I have, and we were allowed to smoke, so that was good. So anyways, I have always suffered from depression and anxiety for as long as I can remember. However, about 6 years ago, that took a turn for the worse. And I was diagnosed bipolar. And bipolar disorder, if you don't know, is you suffer from mania, whether it's high or it's low. It's always very, very exaggerated highs. So when I'm manic, it's a little bit different from other people that are bipolar. When I'm manic, I'm very impulsive. I will stay awake for 4 or 5 days on end. I spend money that I know I don't have to spend, and that typically gets me in trouble. My impulsive behavior during my manic times are very impulsive. So, and it's always usually something that I do that I know I shouldn't do. But in that moment, it feels good for me and it makes me feel better until I realize, oh my God, what have I done? And usually after a big spending spree is when I hit my manic lows. Now, with my manic lows, I will be on the couch under the covers with the TV on for days on end. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm not good enough. And that's a big one that's been hitting me lately. Like, I feel like I'm not good enough to be with Justin, which is my fiance, in case nobody knew that. But, you know, and then I'll start talking to him about it. And I know I put a lot of pressure on him when this happens to me because I need that reassurance from him that I am good enough and that he does love me. And even though, you know, in spite of my problems that I do have, physical and mental health wise, that he wants to be with me. And I'll need that reassurance over and over and over again during my manic lows because I just don't feel it. So even when he says it to me, I don't believe it. So it takes a long time and a lot of work to get me out of my manic lows. There'll be times where I won't take a shower for 4 or 5 days because I just don't have the energy to get up off the couch to go run the water in the shower. And it sounds so stupid, but that's exactly how it is. Your energy is just sucked out of your body and nothing or no one can fix it. So I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I also have a diagnosis of PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. It happens to people that have been in a very traumatic situation. And, you know, a lot of the soldiers come back from Afghanistan or Iraq with PTSD from the things that they've seen and the things that they've had to do while over there. Mine stems from childhood trauma, and I was in a really bad car accident. It was a head-on collision, October 2nd, 2007, and I just to make it short, I have a lot of psychological issues because of the childhood trauma and because of the accident. So I'll get flashbacks, I get nightmares, I'll break out into sweat, I feel like I'm having, you know, a heart attack with the anxiety, and it's just all very, very, very real. So this newest diagnosis that I have is the one, you know, and I try to get it where this, you know, where people can talk about it openly and freely without feeling a certain type of way about it. And as I say that, I feel ashamed to talk about my new diagnosis. And I just feel like it's another area where I've yet messed up again. And I know that's not true. My psychiatrist has talked to me ad nauseum about it. I know it's not my fault, but it very, very much feels like it is. So my newest diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. You know, for at least 10 years, I have dealt with hearing voices randomly. You know, I've never discussed it with my mom. I've never discussed it with Justin. I just thought it was something that I just had to deal with. But it was never scary or menacing, or it was just faint whispers that I would hear. And so I just kind of dealt with it until one day, about 5 years ago, when I was living in Savannah with Justin, I had my first hallucination, visual hallucination. And it was scary. I felt like my body was experiencing like a movie live. I felt like I was in this movie and I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't shake it. And at the time, I hadn't slept for 4 or 5 days because of the chronic pain that I have. and I deal with insomnia a lot. And I wasn't manic at that point. And I'm not going to go into details about the hallucinations because, I don't want to trigger anybody else. But I called my doctor's office first thing the following morning after it had happened, and they thought I had serotonin syndrome, but I was only on one medication that was a serotonin inhibitor, so I don't believe that's what it was. And then they said I was suffering from body awake, mind asleep syndrome, which is where when you stayed up for so long without sleep, your brain falls asleep, but your body's still awake. Excuse me. So anything that you experience in your brain, like dreams, nightmares, that's what plays out. That's what you hallucinate. So I was like, okay, this makes sense, But then I was having episodes of it happening a lot more frequently. Every time of which I landed in, the psychiatric unit at the hospital here in town. But I've had one terrifying hallucination, and that was the one time I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't want to be locked up again. I didn't want to be, restrained to this unit that I couldn't get out of. I just didn't want to do it. So fast forward to now, my hallucinations are now happening even when I do get sleep. So that's really hard for me to wrap my head around. And it's always the same. Hold on. Sorry, my dogs were roughhousing. So anyways, I started hallucinating again. I was sleeping, so this was all very new to me. And I ended up going to the hospital. I started hearing voices about 4 weeks ago. I went to the hospital. They kept me there for 8 days, changed up all my medications. Sorry, I just really don't like talking about it. Kept me for 8 days, changed up all my medicine. The hallucinations went away, so they discharged me. I was home for 3 days. The following Sunday, I started hearing voices again. Went back up to the ER, and they ended up sending me home. They were full. The unit was full. Because of the COVID-19 thing, they were only allowing one person per room. So they fill up after 6 people because there's only 12 beds. So anyways, I went home. I actually smoked some marijuana. I have my card. I was hoping that maybe it would help me relax, calm down, go to sleep, which it did. I slept all night. Probably the best sleep that I've gotten in a long time. I woke up the next day and I was having visual hallucinations as well. They were very scary. And to be honest, they're still here in my house. I still see them. I learned some grounding techniques and some coping skills while I was at the facility, residential facility. So I have a better way of handling it, and I know how to tell what's real and what's not now. As before I went to the facility, I couldn't tell what was a hallucination and what was real life. So with some techniques that my therapist had worked with me on, I'm able to determine, so the techniques are working, coping skills, grounding techniques. So what I do is I keep a rubber band around my hand or like a hair tie, and I'll snap it. And anytime I see something that I think might be a hallucination, I'll snap it. And if it doesn't fade out, then obviously it's real. When I do snap it, the hallucinations tend to fade out a bit, but they do return. So I'm on all these new medications now. I'm hoping that eventually here soon that they'll start to help. The hallucinations will start to go away or, disappear, whatever they do. Because I really don't want to live every day seeing them. Sorry. I've tried to, I try to keep my mental health problems to myself, to my family. There's one person in particular that I have shared this with. He's my best friend. He is always there for me. He lives 1,000 miles away almost, but he definitely helps. He brings me back, to reality, and he could talk to me, and I just instantly feel better, And then there's Justin, who, he's always been really good when it comes to my health, whether it be mental or physical. This last time, my family had a really hard time accepting the schizoaffective disorder. They thought it was one thing, they thought it was something else, and then I think they're finally coming around to the fact that I do have schizoaffective. It was a really hard diagnosis for me to swallow, because I've met schizophrenic people before, and I don't find myself falling into that category. But, everybody's different, and I have to realize that if I'm ashamed of my diagnosis, I'm keeping that stigma on the mental health. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm trying to get stronger and overcome this diagnosis. I know it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there, much like my nerve disease. But there is a treatment for it. There's ways that we can manage the symptoms that I have from it. So yeah, that's the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to, express how sorry I am that I've been gone. I know I don't have that many followers yet. I'm hoping that it will increase as time goes on, the more videos I post. But, to those that do follow, I am sorry that I disappeared for a little while. But, when there's something that happens to you physically or mentally, you've got to deal with it when it comes. And the biggest advice that I can give is, please don't be ashamed of your diagnosis. Don't be ashamed of what you have. Because then you're just feeding that stigma, and we need to squash it. So yeah, that is it for my video today. If you have any questions, just please feel free to reach out, and I will do my best to get back to you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. And so sorry, my storage space went crazy on my phone. So anyways, I will include some definitions of different diagnoses at the end of this video, so you can see them and kind of, compare and contrast. So like I said, if there's any questions, if you want to ask me anything, feel free to reach out, direct messenger, and I will do everything that I can to get you back. Thanks for watching, and look out for my next video. Bye guys.